All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline and SCL Mortgage. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I'm here on this Monday morning to discuss the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic, as they've been on a lot of days off, a few days off here for Denver. Basically, they've gotten their only break that they've had post All-Star break during this stretch, and it's been nice. It's been good for your boy. That's for sure. And I am very curious to see how they respond after a few days off, because pre-All-Star break they did not do well when they had a lot of time off. But that was more of a focus thing, more of an energy thing, more of a desire thing. I think they have that desire now. That's not really as much of a question for me. The real question is, like, are they curious and wanting to see whether they can do something against Minnesota on Tuesday night? We will find out. We'll look at that together. But right now, we're going to go over the MVP conversation really quickly. I'll talk about some stats that I have for Denver against top 10 teams. Easiest playoff matchups for the Nuggets and Christian Braun's season. We'll get into all of that. A full show here over at Pickaxe and Roll. Very excited to get in on the action. But first, want to make sure to talk to everybody about the sponsor of today's podcast, BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything during all this college basketball madness. Even if your bracket is busted, BetOnline has so many ways for you to get in on the action this year. You can live bet every remaining tournament game. They did do a free Sweet 16 bracket. Hopefully you got in on the action there. They have a large selection of odds on everything from college basketball to MLB, NHL, MMA. Obviously, the NBA is central to this particular conversation. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. They've got you covered. Odds, stats, and more on every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Once again, I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I know not a lot of Nuggets fans are going to like the take that I'm about to put out here, but I wrote an article, posted it this morning, about how I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to win the MVP this year. And it's not as undeserved as a lot of Nuggets fans want to make it out to be. And that's an unpopular take, because I think a lot of Nuggets fans see Nikola Jokic, the best player in the world, clear best player in the world, as somebody who should win an MVP every single season, especially this year when the numbers that he has put up are ridiculous. He's going to average a triple-double. He's going to be the second player in NBA history, if he maintains his numbers, to go 55, 40, 80 on shooting splits. He has a career high in steals plus blocks at 2.5. Like, he has been pretty good, maybe not in the overall defensive impact, but certainly he's gotten a lot of steals. He has made sure to make himself viable on that end. And a lot of Denver's defensive issues are not his fault. They just aren't. It's about losing KCP. It's about the rest of Denver's rotation not necessarily holding up at times. But then at times I've also watched him. I've also commented on his defense before, and there's a reason why, like, other teams that have Denver's position in terms of not having a lot of perimeter defenders, like, they can make up for it, because some of those guys are, like, some of those centers in the middle of the floor are a little bit better than Jokic. But that shouldn't be his role. It shouldn't be his conversation. And it hasn't really been a big piece of the conversation in previous MVP years, except for the ones where Jokic has been a part of it, because everybody's like, oh, well, defense matters. Defense is a big deal in this conversation. But they only do that when the other guy that he's facing is a better defender. That's the only reason. It's not like with Luka, when Luka was a part of it, that wasn't a part of the conversation. Defense was certainly not a part of it. But with Embiid, that was. And it's funny, I went and looked at some numbers for this MVP race and came away with the distinct impression that Joel Embiid should never have been a part of the MVP race with Jokic. Shai should be, because he's actually been a better basketball player. But Embiid should not have been anywhere close to Jokic, especially in that 2022-23 season where Jokic's numbers were they far outstripped what Embiid was doing. And that was a consideration of voter fatigue, that one in particular. This one, I don't really feel that way. And the reason why, like I wrote a few things in the article that you should check out, milehighsports.com. The long and short of it is that the numbers that Shai has put up as an impact player have been just as good, if not better, than what Jokic has done. The counting stats are different. Like everybody knows Jokic's numbers. Shai's at about 33 points per game, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and then 1.7 steals and 1 block per game. But he also shoots with incredible efficiency. He's at about 64 true shooting, which is tremendous. That's in the same general ballpark as Jokic's, despite the fact that Shai is taking a lot of very difficult shots. Now, Jokic is taking difficult shots, and the fact that he's taking as difficult shots as he is and still has the shooting efficiency that he does is extremely notable. And I think that you're going to clearly see that Jokic is the best offensive player in the NBA. That's never ever been a question mark. But in terms of the season that Shai is having, it's about the most impactful. What is the most impactful? What is the most valuable season this year? Because again, I still think that Jokic is the best player in the world. So how can I possibly be thinking that Shai deserves the MVP? I go and look at the numbers, and total plus minus on the season, Shai leads the entire NBA at plus 878. Plus 878 is a really high number. It's one of the highest plus minus numbers in a while. Jokic this year is second in the entire NBA at plus 541. That is a gap of over 300 in the plus minus department, just raw plus minus. OKC has an unfathomable plus 17.1 net rating when Shai is on the floor. When he's off the floor, they're still pretty good. They're still pretty impressive at plus 4.3. And that's where a lot of Nuggets fans get very bothered, because how could you possibly be MVP when your team is so good while you're off the floor? The gap there is about plus 13.7, plus 13.8. The gap for Jokic between when he's on versus when he's off is plus 18.7. It's actually smaller than people remember, because when he's on the floor, Jokic plus 10.5 net rating. When he's off the floor, minus 8.2. And so the gap that people have talked about with Jokic, that he's so clearly the plus minus darling, he's the guy who has the most impact for his team. Those are true, but the gap there is so much smaller that to me it makes more sense to talk about what's going on when you're on the floor than when you are off the floor. Because especially the biggest reason for that is because the Thunder have better depth. They can replace Shai. They can replace because he's a guard. He's not in that difficult position that the Nuggets are in, where he's a point center. How are you going to replace a point center out there? It's very, very difficult. So I'm not surprised that Jokic is a higher number there. But the fact that Shai's is also very high is notable to me. The other factor is that when any other player on the Thunder, including Jalen Williams, including Chet Holmgren, including any of these guys, when any of those guys sit, they still have a double-digit positive plus minus net rating. When Shai sits, it's only a plus 4. So he really is the central piece of what they're doing, despite the fact that he's not leading the NBA in assists or pretty close to it like Jokic is. It's a different way of impact. And something there is going on statistically that the true traditional numbers are not picking up. I think if you looked at this MVP race from a traditional number standpoint, you'd be like, Jokic is definitely going to win. Jokic should win. But there are some underlying numbers, I think, behind the scenes that show Shai's impact on both ends of the floor. And he is a better defender than Jokic. He doesn't have a harder job than Jokic, that's for sure. That's because Lou Dort is taking on toughest perimeter possessions. And then Alex Caruso and Aaron Wiggins and those guys can come in. Jalen Williams is like their big wing defender. They can hide Shai if they want to. They usually don't want to. They usually don't have to, but they can. And so it's a very interesting part of the conversation. Yeah, and here's a good explanation of this comment from Sheila of Tommy. I think it's just it's the value of you lifting a bad team to very good or lifting a good team to all time. And in previous years, the best player on the best team was always kind of the narrative that had popped up. Like, that's a dumb narrative to me. You should always be trying to find the most impactful season, regardless of whether they're lifting a bad team to good or a good team to all-time great. But I do think that that's a pretty good approximation of what we're seeing here. And Denver, for all of the interesting positive wins that they've had without Jokic, it still just looks and feels extremely shaky. And whenever he's off the floor, when he's playing, you can see that pretty consistently against any team that's better than like the bottom 10 teams in the NBA. So it will be interesting to see how that handles and what that's looking for. I see DB just popped into this StreamYard. So what's up, DB? I'm curious to see how this ultimately breaks down, this MVP race. But I do think that the most likely situation for Denver at this point is it's probably that this is going to be like a 75-25 win for Shai. Like 100 MVP voters get an opportunity every year. And I think that it's probably going to be about 75-25. I don't think it should be that much. Groupthink is going to have it be that much where everybody's going to come to the same conclusion that I have come to. But if you watch Jokic and you watch everything that he has done this year and the impact that he has had on the Nuggets and the kinds of crazy numbers that he can put up, but also just the moments that he has had, they've been crazier moments, that's for sure. Shai has had some crooked point totals that he's put up, that's for sure. But he hasn't ever put up 30, 20, 20. He hasn't ever put up the 50-point triple doubles that the Jokic has put up. There's a difference there. Jokic has been in more clutch games, more clutch situations, and has handled that even better. So it just wouldn't surprise me if this is a little bit closer than maybe I'm pointing it out to be. But that's the thing, is that it should be close. This is something where Nuggets fans, you could be upset if Jokic doesn't win, but I just don't think you can be that mad because the numbers that Shai is putting up have been really, really, really impressive. Last thing, and I'm going to put this in here before we get out of here. I put together a little graphic last night, and it's in the article. These are top 2 MVP winners by advanced metrics in each of the past 5 seasons. Jokic has been there in all 5. And you can see that in each of those years, Jokic has been the leader in those advanced metrics on a pretty consistent basis, whether it's win shares, estimated plus minus, net rating, box plus minus, or LeBron. That's the metric that Krishna Narsu put out. That's pretty good at capturing, I think, both offensive and defensive impact. Jokic is clearly the leader in all of those. He was robbed in 2022-23. In 2023-24 last year, Shai actually edged him out in EPM, but Jokic won in every other category, although it was closer in some matters than when it was Embiid. This year, kind of looks like SGA can and should like have a case in some of this stuff. Like he's played a few more games. He's been more individually like impactful in the EPM metrics. His team is winning more. And even box plus minus. Look at the box plus minus numbers for every other MVP finisher that's not Jokic. SGA has actually like been so much closer in that one, which I think really double counts what Jokic is doing as a passer. And SGA is right there. And then the LeBron, like that 6.78 is the second highest number in the last 5 years. Jokic's 2022 actually underrated by a lot of people in some ways. He was super impactful that year. But this year, it wouldn't surprise me if it should go to Shai. Not that it will. Not that like I want it to or anything like that. Like Jokic has impacted my job in a lot of ways. But I think that it's reasonable for people to vote for Shai. This isn't something where this isn't a travesty. This isn't voter fatigue. This isn't like I don't know. This is not those excuses. This is something different. This is just another player playing really, really well. And that's fine. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to chat about let's chat about the Nuggets being iffy versus these top 10 teams still. And then we'll get into some of these other conversation points when we come back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Really quickly, this podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by our good friends over at SCL Mortgage, who do a great job for you if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a second loan, if you're looking for anything kind of money related that you believe that a mortgage company could help out with. SCL Mortgage is the right company for you. They've got hundreds of happy customers, a 5-star reputation. Contact our friends over at SCL Mortgage because they are a great mortgage company that you can trust. Call 303-790-2222 or visit myspecialmortgage.com. All right, let's get back into this. The Nuggets are still iffy versus these top 10 teams. That is still a thing that is happening. It hasn't really changed, even though the Nuggets have been playing a lot more top 10 teams. Actually, that's the reason why it hasn't changed, is because they have been playing them. On the season, the Nuggets, if you go over to Cleaning the Glass, I know not all of you have a Cleaning the Glass subscription, but I'm looking at it now. I'm sorting by games versus the top 10 teams in point differential. The Nuggets rank 12th in the NBA. The teams ahead of them, OKC, Boston, Cleveland. Okay, not a surprise. Minnesota is 4th. Minnesota is 4th. They are a team that rises to the occasion in some of these situations. They have the 4th best offense and